Greetings, this is Mr. Nobody with part 2 about the MAGA Republican. Well, let's talk about Mr. Trump. He's the one who really started the slogan, the acronym, the hat, all of it. Make America Great Again. What was great about America? What did America do in World War II? What did America do in putting people on the moon? What did America do in giving the whole world, a constitution that has, to a very large degree, formed a kind of blueprint for all the really good constitutions other nations have been adopting. They have their variations, of course, but a lot of the things are very similar, and especially such things as giving rights to the individual people, rights that the government has no right to take away from us, and a whole list of things: free speech, free ability to gather, free expression of any religion, freedom of being able to print anything, freedom of being able to bear arms, freedom from being searched and so forth, freedom from unfair legal processes, the rights of the accused and all of that. I mean, and you can just go on all the way down. All these things, finally anything not called out in here is left to the states. So I mean, you had all these really great freedoms, and other constitutions started doing the same. Well, it had its origins actually in the British Magna Carta of the 1200s, but that was kind of an isolated thing, and obviously by the time of George III, it certainly had no application, certainly not among the English colonies, such as what existed here. So, but it had been a good idea, and I think some of the ideas in the Constitution and Bill of Rights do actually have their root all the way back in the Magna Carta. So that does still remain a significant document in its own way. But the Constitution, even as originally founded, to say nothing of its further amendments overall, is undeniably a genuine, legitimate improvement and advance. Something that, if only this could have been given to us by some divine revelation at the outset, we could probably have avoided a lot of the difficulties we've had to face. But it's it's a human thing. You have to do it as humans. So Trump comes along. Now let me tell you, when I first saw a message about Trump, I didn't get to see him come down that golden escalator and announce his candidacy. I just saw this email that indicated that he's thrown his hat in the ring to finally run for president. And the first thought that came to my mind is this guy's already at least a billionaire, maybe multi-billion, I don't know. I mean, he's ridiculously rich. You get to the point where being a billionaire or a quadrillionaire isn't enough difference to make a difference to the person who's got that. A millionaire is a bit less, and less than that, the poorer you get, the more your financial status starts affecting what you can and can't do as an ordinary person. But once you're a billionaire, you're beyond all of that. Most importantly, I saw the problem being all these politicians. I think a lot of them might mean well, but they're at the mercy of who supports them. Whoever supports them can say, but I want you to do this. I want you to protect this industry from any taxes or trouble, or this company, and they'll do it. No matter how blatantly corrupt, because that's who's paying their campaign. That shouldn't be allowed, but there it is. And who's could put a law to stop that from happening? They all have a vested interest in keeping that going. Or enough that it takes a majority to change that sort of thing, and there's always a few who are willing to want to change that, but they're so hopelessly outmoded. Proposals of that sort don't even hit the floor. So we're stuck with a system that just invites corruption, manipulation, pressure, and of course, a lot of politicians really don't give a crap. They just want to be the politician. They want to have the fun and flavor of being, senator this, congressman that, your honor this, and president that, and they don't really care. Not really. Once they're there, they're safe. They've got it made. They know even if the world blows up, they'll just go down to Mount Weather and keep on being president or senator or whatever they are. So they are fine. They know that. We're as fine as be humanly possible. So what are you gonna do? And then Trump comes along. Now, here's a guy who cannot be bought. That is unique to him. Whatever we may think of his personality or less than ideal lifestyle, in that, he's on what I think his third marriage. He's not perfect. I'm not going to claim that he is. In fact, some of these could be very serious defects, and maybe in the long term, these defects could end up costing all of us to some degree, potentially. Although, as president, he could only do one more term, and I think he still has enough very important and worthwhile things to do that I think that we could definitely have him having for another term. We definitely need that. We need somebody that can't be bought. That's the only kind of person that might maybe be able to break apart this whole thing of letting all these lobbyists, these special interests, these massive donors, mega donors, and so forth, mega MEGA, as in multi or kilo or micro, like power of 10 metric unit donors, moguls, if you will, call the shots on what they will or won't do. So he's not going to be affected by any of that. They don't own him. Nobody owns him. He owns himself. And that, I think, just of itself was the one thing that made him stand out for me. Now, as his campaign went along, and I was not very impressed with it, I have to admit, I turned my hopes maybe briefly to, maybe Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz. But, by the time the primaries well along, it's clear these guys are not going anywhere. The nice thing was to see that once everything was over and Trump was the candidate, and especially all the better once he was the president, they fell in line and supported him. Politicians will do that. They can be real chameleons, and if you got somebody good in charge, that's not such a bad thing. It's at least as long as you got somebody good in charge, they'll do fine. So that's what really stood out for me about him. I'd already decided I'm going to vote him, and I did. I'd do it again however many opportunities I get. So however many times he runs, because that's what I'm seeing there. Now, I did not understand this bit with the wall. We got along reasonably well enough without one. Why do we suddenly need a wall? Say nothing of who's to say whether or not when the stark raving communists, woke nightmares really take over the planet or take over the country, that wall may end up being not a matter of keeping people out, but keeping people in. Maybe that's when it gets completed, is when this place becomes such a hellhole, that they'll need to finish the wall to keep people in so we can't escape. But right now it's still people want to get in here. Despite everything, there still seems to be at least a little more opportunity, not much, than they might have in their homelands. So they want to get here. Yeah. I think a lot of it is this grand myth as to what they think they're going to find, and then they get here. It's not really quite that. But then they're here, and they got to make the best of it. And when the people immigrate, however, and if they can stay, they generally do make the best of it. So I didn't understand all that at first, but that didn't matter. I think it was just we need somebody who can't be bought. That's why he had my vote. That's the one reason he should have anybody's vote. He will not be bought. He knows what he wants to do. He wants to know why. And let me tell you why. wants to do what he wants to do. It's this third marriage, the current one, Melania. You know, she comes from a country where they started taking over and ruling everything, totalitarianism, secret police, censorship, all this kind of stuff going on, political censorship, politically motivated censorship, basically to keep people, the community, the population, from knowing the truth about what's really going on, and no freedom for anybody to tell what's been really going on, so that people get on, get their heads screwed on straight and know what's going on and what they need to do. So she's seen this, and now she's seeing this same stuff here, and she's saying, I can just see their pillows like, Donald, I saw this in my home country. This is bad. We've got to stop this. You've got to run for president. And she's absolutely right. I mean, I would have loved to hold up a sign at some of their rallies and have a sign in red lettering that says, "I'm with her," and it's a picture of Melania Trump. But I didn't get a chance to do that. But that's what I would like to do. To make fun of the "I'm with her" slogan for Hillary, But let's get back to the whole serious thing. So when he got in, despite all the crap that was thrown at him, and there was tons of it, and that's another story, he still, even so, managed to carry off quite a number of amazing things, bringing jobs back to America, bringing industry back to America, bringing energy independence back to America, bringing, the tariffs on China. There are very good reasons why there should be tariffs on especially places like that, because they undercut our costs because they don't have to follow the rules that we've been following. Good rules, as long as not carried to excess, but good rules, basically. Rules about, rights of the worker, to a reasonable wage and safe working conditions, rights of the purchasing the customer base, to a product that is as advertised, and if not, you can bring it back and get your money back for a refund, and even the stockholders should have a right, to see a business prosper and be a part of that prosperity. These are the rights of these people, the rights of the world and community at large to be protected from, unnecessary damage to the environment and so forth, unnecessary cruelty to animals, all these other kinds of things. We have laws about these things. In some places we could afford to have them better or stronger or more finely tuned, in other places they're already excessive or onerous or ridiculous, but there's no reason we couldn't streamline that down to what's really and genuinely necessary, you see. But we try. We're doing pretty good, all said and told, in all these areas. Well, none of that applies in China. You don't have to pay your workers much. You don't have to give them safe working conditions. You don't have to worry about how much, carbon dioxide your stuff puts in the atmosphere. They put a whole lot more carbon dioxide than we do, because even if we were to burn coal instead of them for the same electricity, we have a lot of things we would do to prevent that carbon dioxide, or at least reduce it considerably. They just blow it all out there because nobody cares what they do. Their government sure doesn't. And we might not like it, but hey, we don't run their country. And we don't have any power to tell them what to do. They're going to do whatever they want to do. So they can undercut us. They don't have to pay their workers. They don't have to protect their environment. They don't have to do all those other expensive things. Cruelty to animals, even cruelty to human beings, source of organ transplants and things. There's a whole ugly story behind that. See, we have a lot of laws about this stuff. They don't. So absolutely we should be having tariffs. And really that could be as much for their good as ours, because it's a way of saying, if you guys agree to adopt the same standards, or at least generally speaking, the same kinds of standards to protect all these different interests and so forth, then we can take away the tariff. No need for it anymore. You see, the tariff is to compensate for the fact you're doing stuff that you shouldn't be allowed to do. We can't stop you from doing it, but we can at least say, but if you're going to bring your, mass-produced, cheap, horribly produced stuff over here, don't expect to be able to bring it in without a heavy tariff. That's just being fair. So, I mean, you could go on and on. He did a lot of great stuff. The Abraham Accords, you almost never hear about that. Imagine peace between Israel and several Islamic countries. And probably could have been more. Another term would probably get more such peace. And I think there was another accord too. I think Kosovo and Serbia, I think, or someplace in Europe. That was another one of the peace accords. I mean, wonderful peace agreements. And it's interestingly enough, although he developed the military to a substantial degree, there weren't any wars. We had a strong military that had anybody wanted to raise trouble, they knew what they'd have to meet up with. And nothing went wrong. It was 4 years of peace. It really was. Certainly for us, in the few places where things happened, it didn't go bad for very long, it just couldn't. So, I mean, incredible accomplishments. Who wouldn't have wanted 4 more years of that? Well, certainly not a rational human being. So, he wanted to bring all this greatness back again, which now brings us to the next part, which I'll start